What kept you going through the hard times?
I
Yeah. Did you ever, what kept you going through the hard times, and
yeah,
did you ever consider quitting? Now, I know that
yeah.
in the span of time that you've spent here in Los Angeles as a real working actor, I mean, you've done it. You've beat the pavement. You've had ups and downs and all sorts of different circumstances. So,
Right. What kept me going?
yeah.
Sometimes it was just pure, uh, pure working class New England stubbornness.
Yeah.
It was just like, fuck you. I'm not. I will not be defeated. Other times, it was I had to look at it and go, do I, do I really love this? I mean, what is my affinity? What am I drawn to about this? And when I answered that question, honestly, the answer that I got was yes. And I think that you have to, whether you make $1 million out of it or you make $10, life is too short. You have to do what you love. You just have to. And if you're doing what you love, you'll do it against insurmountable odds. It doesn't matter. You just have to do it.
Well, even before you knew you loved it, you were already in a car moving to Los Angeles at $300.
Yeah.
Not knowing anybody. So, I mean,
On a gut, on a hunch.
On a hunch.
On a hunch. You know, I'm sitting there in that theater watching, you know, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. I came alive. And I knew there was something about, you know, I knew there was something about this that I had to at least try. And that the impetus to do that was incredibly strong. But the point that I wanted to make was, during those lean years, during those times that it became really, really difficult, I always thought to myself, if I ever have to walk, and I did, and we can talk about it later, for a brief period of time I did, I stopped, I walked away from it. I stayed in Los Angeles, I didn't go anywhere, but I thought, it was during one of the darkest periods of my time here. It was not long after my father had passed away, and I was really questioning a lot of things. And I wasn't working. After having worked, I wasn't some A-list star, but I was able to make a living at it, and that just all went away, and I was just sort of stuck. And I remember thinking, you know, if this never happens for me, I will always be grateful that I came here, that I did it, that I tried it, because acting and pursuing acting led me on a journey inward that I don't think that I would have taken otherwise. I don't think I would have taken if I'd stayed where I was born and raised. Not to the degree that I did here. And I think that that's important without getting, you know, like really, I'm not telling people to go out and get into therapy for $200 an hour and go on this deep, you know, journey into your inner being. But I think it's really important to self-realize, self-actualize, and sort of turn your attention within and sort of figure out who you are.
Those are two great words: self-realization and self-actualization. I mean, that's, yeah.
And self-reflection. I think that there has to be a certain amount of time set, you know, that, and there's a certain period in our lives where and they usually happen in these crossroads in our lives, you know, when things are not good or there's changes going on, where you self-reflect. And you start to look at who you are and what your place is in the world and how you see yourself, and not even, and you don't even think about where you want to go. At least I didn't. I thought I didn't want to do that because my whole life up until that point was about where am I going to go, where do I see myself, and I didn't want to do that. I wanted to just go, what am I doing, you know, and just reflect on where I'd come from and where I am now. Yeah. And when I started to do that, I started to see a really deep shift in my work. And that had nothing to do with acting classes and scene study and things like that. Although that was the impetus to probably make me do that initially. When I started to do that sort of, you know, emotional, sort of psychological, you know, look at myself, my work just sort of went in another direction.
So getting to know yourself and then not judging the bad things or not judging anything that you find.
Yes, yeah, and again, that's not easy.
No,
that's not easy. There's a certain amount of pain and suffering, and then you're going to see shit you don't like.
Yeah,
and you got to be with it in the best way that you can possibly be with it. Yeah. So, yeah.
We got a question. What's it like to be directed in feature films as opposed to television? And I'm going to open the question up a little bit,
Okay.
because you have experience in both worlds. But let's open up the question to one of process as well. So we're going to just switch gears a little bit now.
Yeah, sure.
So what's it like to audition? Wait, is that the, no. What's it like to be directed in both instances? But then what's the work like in the two different milieus, or the two different working conditions? In the two different settings, right?
Yeah. Television, not a lot of time. It's quick. Got to get the shot. Got to move on.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of time to sit there and be talking about character. It's the last thing that you're going to talk about when you're working in television.
Yeah.
Come prepared, know your lines, be on time, and this is, goes, sort of goes back to what we talked about, making choices.
Hey, dude, I haven't had any of that. It's good to go with that one.
Making choices and feeling good about them, and doing it in a relatively short period of time, because television is just not going to give you a lot of time to do that. You'll do a scene and you're not going to have a lot of time. You won't have a lot of takes.
Right.
You'll get maybe 3 or 4, and you move on. You want,
So right now you like I said, you're a series regular on Mad Men, so you have a lot of experience knowing what it's like to walk into that job, right?
Yeah.
That job site, so to speak. But earlier on, before you had that experience, what did it take for you to learn what was expected of you on a television set, and then what's this process by which you went to get that work done so that you could continue to be hired?
The process in terms of learning, the best process. There's no class, TV class, film class. The best class is to be on the set and working, and that's the bitch of it, because someone's got to give you a break.
Well, look, I come from a theater background and did a lot of experimental theater in New York and so on and so forth. So without somebody having taught me that, you got to do your homework at home, and that nobody's going to talk to you about process. There's not going to be any experimenting of any kind.
No.
Right? I mean, you walk onto a set and the first thing you do is got to check what direction the doorknobs turn, because you don't want to be the guy that walks into the furniture, right? So
it's you.
So how'd you figure that out?
Trial and error.
Yeah.
You're going to fuck up.
Yeah.
You're going to make mistakes. Just try to keep them small so you don't get fired. Listen, people in this business, they're pretty forgiving. Yeah. I mean, you would have to be a real idiot to and be holding up production for them to go, he's terrible, get him out of here.
Right.
They know you're going to screw up sometime, especially a young actor.
Yeah.
They want to minimize that.
Right.
They want to minimize that. They want to hire the best person they can hire.
Yeah.
But a lot of it is just common sense. And I think where actors get into trouble on sets where they make those mistakes is just nerves. It's just nerves, turning camera left, camera right, movie here, walking up to you're hitting your mark and saying your line. I mean, this is real basic stuff. Having the DP tell you, this is your light. If you move over here, you're going to be out of your light. If you move like this, you're going to cast a shadow on her. It's, you don't need you don't have to spend thousands of dollars on a film class to know that. If you want to do it just to see what that's like, I say do it, but don't do it for months and years and years. You don't have to.
Yeah.
Take it once, go, okay, I got the feel for it. Because then once you get on a set, you're going to learn it. Once you're on a set 2 or 3 times even, you kind of know it. You as an actor at least, you kind of you got it. And just listen to what they tell you to do in terms of where to move and where not to move, and you'll be fine. You'll be fine. It's just really and the best class is the work itself. The best class is to be on the set and to be doing it, and that's very frustrating for an actor who hasn't done it yet, because they don't have that experience. They want that experience, but yet they need the job to get that experience. They need, so it's a double-edged sword, and you have to wait for the break and to be able to do it. And at least in television, because that's what I'm talking about right now, you just don't have a lot of time to get into process, to get into character. They're hiring you most of the time when you get hired in television, especially as a young person starting out. You're going to be playing someone that's very, very close to yourself, and that's a good thing. You're going to be playing someone that's very close to your character, in terms of how you look, the physicality, and like for instance, if you were a jock in college and high school, you might be getting a job your first few jobs might be as a jock. You'll most likely get those kinds of roles that are in your wheelhouse, that are things that you can, and it'll come across in the room when you audition. There'll just be a naturalness that comes across, with a sort of grace and ease, because you're already familiar with that environment.
Right.
So,
I mean, we're going to move on to being directed on film, because that's part of the original question, but I don't want to move on because from this subject, because
Did I evade the question? Did I not answer the question?
No, you answered the question.
Sorry, caller.
No. You did. You actually did. And
Okay.
we have a comment. Thanks for answering my question. So you did answer the question.
Okay.
We're going to talk about now what it's like on a film set as opposed to television. But before that, earlier we were talking about process, about knowing yourself, self-actualization, self-realization, self-reflection. And then before that, we talked about learning, getting a set of tools and acquiring a technique, right? That whatever technique works for you. I'm not advocating for any technique in particular. I'm saying whatever works for you, but as long as it's a technique, right?
Yeah.
So you have these things that you bring with you to, whether it be a improv or stage play or television or comedy or whatever, right? You got your tools. And now we're talking about what that experience is like on a soundstage, on a television show, and what's expected of you as a professional. It's being paid to show up and do your job.